So welcome everyone. We're happy that you can join us today. Spending your afternoon in front of a computer screen instead of being outside. We're not sure where you are right now, but it's a gorgeous afternoon here in Toronto. My name is Annick Glaude and I'm the curator of the Varley Art Gallery of Markham. Beside me, well, on my screen to my right is Yan Wu, the public art curator at the City of Markham. With Markham Public Art, the Varley Art Gallery are the producers behind the digital project online. So before we get to today's event, and I let Yan introduce you to the project, I know that we're all connected from our various locations across Canada, maybe across the world, who knows. I would still like to acknowledge that the Varley Art Gallery of Markham is situated on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe. We also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land, and in particular, the First Nation community in closest proximity to the gallery in York region, the Chippewas of Georgina Island. Specifically, this statement means to us that the gallery is committed to learning the history of this land by doing our own research, by listening, and by collaborating. So Online is a joint initiative between Markham Public Art and the Varley Art Gallery of Markham. It delves into the potential of public art production and social engagement in the digital sphere. Driving it is the central question: can this time of uncertainty be productive? Can it be an opportunity for us to pause and reflect, to reshape and imagine new public spatial relationships, whether built or natural, virtual or physical? Arising directly from the City Council approved Markham Public Art Master Plan 2020-2024, Online explores the multiple factors that steer the making of public art, how artworks find their sites and become public. Unfolding over the summer of 2020, Online has two parts: a practical webinar series on public art titled Homework, which is co-produced with public art consulting firm Art Public Unlimited, and an online competition for speculative public art proposal titled Delimit. The entire initiative is hosted on and distributed by a publicly available network of digital platforms. On behalf of the Varley Art Gallery, I would like to thank the Ontario Arts Council and the Varley Mackay Art Foundation of Markham for their ongoing support. And with that, I pass it on to Yan.
Okay. And just give me a second. Okay. Here we go. Okay, thanks, Annick, and good afternoon, everyone. So speaking of today's event, it actually arises from a series of coincidences. And when Markham City Council formally approved the master plan, Annick mentioned earlier, and its implementation plan earlier this year, I was planning a 3-day International Public Art Summit for June with public art consultant Rebecca Carbon. I think Rebecca is here. Hi. And to be more precise, the summit was supposed to take place last week. And one anchoring element of this summit was a keynote lecture by Ken Long. And we were thrilled when Ken first accepted our invitation. Actually, it was around the time when his recent book, Everything is Relevant, was published. And we thought the social context of Markham and its current development in public art could provide a perfect backdrop to introduce Ken's artwork, especially those ones cited in the public realm and his writings. Then a few weeks later, COVID-19 happened, like everything else and everyone else. We had to postpone the summit to the fall and exploring the ways to move it online. Today's event is actually part of these ongoing explorations. At one point, when I was preparing for Delimit and the online public art competition based on actual physical sites in Markham, I posted on Instagram and Facebook looking for a Google Map super user to help me. And that's how Colin Miner and I were connected. And out of generosity, Colin showed me the issue of Moire they did on Ken Lom's work and explained to me how virtual map played a role in his research. I thought to myself, this must be destiny. Thanks, Colin, for not only agreeing to reproduce this tutorial, but also expanding a simple idea into such a rich experience we're about to enter. And thank you for your meticulous planning and hard work. And we are going to post Colin's bio in the chat box. You can read it later, so I'm not going to repeat it here. And just one more note, we are not going to take questions during Colin's presentation. After that, there will be a Q&A period. And thanks in advance for your patience. And now, here comes Colin.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me, Anne? Yeah, I think so. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It'll be about a 40 minute plus presentation. Yeah, and I'll give details as I go. As a first-generation Canadian, I want to acknowledge my place of birth as the traditional territory of the Micmac. This territory is covered by the treaties of the peace and friendship, first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not negotiate surrender of lands and resources, but instead recognized Micmac title. Articulating this reference has personal significance in relation to my experience with an introduction to a Micmac community on the outskirts of Halifax at a young age. This visit was facilitated by an alternative elementary school run by Dalhousie University and offered an early appreciation and respect for a diversity of culture, history, perspectives, and contexts of place. I would like to thank the Micmac, my parents, and all the various caretakers throughout my life for their generosity in sharing the value of education, questioning, and empathy. This is also an opportunity to acknowledge the difficult times we are in and the importance of being accountable in our methodologies and practices. Words are not enough, especially when the issues permeate and in many ways compose the frameworks for systems on which our lives and realities are so firmly rooted and developed. As a white cis male, it is my responsibility to clearly identify white supremacy as a spectrum and the significant advantages the system has afforded both myself and a disproportionate representation of white men across a much larger and greatly more complex public. White people tend to look at racism within the context of their lifetime. This is a privilege which negates the vast problematic histories on which we live and how our lives are founded. At issue are social and power constructs tied to systematic methods of oppression and justice. These times require not only allies, but loving people, people coming to terms with realities they hadn't imagined. These times require decisive work for our present and future generations. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to listening to and working with you in the future. Moire is an artist publication established by Liza Eurich, Ella Dawn McGough, and Colin Miner in 2012 that focuses on artistic practice through the production of texts, interviews, images, and collaborative projects. The most recent publication project, titled And Space Across Time from 2019, considered the practice of Ken Lum, specifically focusing on a selection of his public artworks. For this project, Mei Chu wrote a fantastic text titled Landscape plus Language plus Labor plus Love. Ella Dawn facilitated an interview text with images by Ken Lum from his 2019 visits with us in Twarli, Beijing. Apologies, the image there went missing. We could see an image there from the issue. Liza Eurich developed a downloadable font in relation to text sourced from past Ken Lum works. And I have a short text plus images made from site visits in person and digitally via street view over a 4-year period, which we will see later. Moire's Catwalk is a supplemental Moire project existing both as an Instagram account feed and a rooftop space for presentation of projects. Website forthcoming. Moire's Catwalk developed from a focus on walking and a slowing down while being present. This was a coping strategy I adapted during my doctoral work and has become an increasingly significant part of my research practice as developed during a 3-month residency in a remote and isolated selection of the Amazon rainforest and following a significant concussion sustained in a motor vehicle accident that left me cognitively impaired for a number of years. I wanted to share a few sources that I came across early on in developing some of this methodology related to Moire's Catwalk. The first is a video. Brigadier Satria, Sukuya, Indonesia from 2018. The second reference is from Istanbul, Turkey, and Tambili, the street cat, who became kind of a local figure of the area that people would visit. And upon his decease, the town came together and made a monument for the cat. I thought these were kind of touching engagements with different subjectivities in different places, looking at different qualities of relations and power dynamics. I'm now going to share a short text I wrote that I feel is intriguing to revisit in relation to reconsidering systems, methodologies, and practices in our current times, and the larger public artwork programming that this presentation is a part of. Moire offers no knowing. Rather, as an effect, it questions vision. In scanning the history of Moire alongside methods to work around and unfurl it, a pattern comprised of avoidance is illuminated. When viewed in duration, what comes into focus is an overlapping of materiality and immateriality. Footnote number 1, quote, "Words put the matter in a new light. The Moire effect was ultimately a kind of graphic unconscious, a basic condition of blur out of which temporary effects of sharpness were occasionally won." End quote. Lytle Shaw, The Moire Effect from 2012. A shifting quality of relations is presenting itself, that is. Emerging, a paradox takes shape in which not looking is less confusing than beholding. To realize the effect, it becomes a requisite to see at angle, a ride to the subject light seeks to represent. Footnote 2, quote, "Light can in fact only give way to an image when its path is impeded, when it is turned away from its course." End quote. Eduardo Cadava, from Words of Light, Theses on the Photography of History from 1997. Representing Moire can be conceived through a visualization process in which the physicality of material is transfigured into the immateriality of the imagistic.
This enhanced visibility is accrued in the crossing of singular paths to make patterns, and then again in the crossing of each pattern that composes the effect so tightly it becomes impermeable to the eye. Footnote 3, quote, I decompose, enlarge, and, so to speak, I retard in order to have time to know at last, end quote. From Roland Barthes, Camera Lucida, 1980. Slipping, skewing, and swaying, the friction between patterns adjusts slightly and or radically to reveal a process of recomposing, decomposing. What does the composition know? Footnote 4, quote, what is to be understood by composition? Two things which compose together. First, separated by an insuperable limit, the two concepts exchange compromises. They compose together, the one with the other. This concept of the photograph photographs all conceptual oppositions. It traces a relationship of haunting, which perhaps is constitutive of all logics, end quote. Jacques Derrida, From the Deaths of Roland Barthes, 1981. Like a compressed, fragmented, crystalline form, the spaces between surfaces are difficult to grasp, not for lack of contrast, but the inverse, a collapse of contrast. Whereas patterns behind offer ground and patterns in front figure, Moire is composed within an interstitial space between surfaces of contact. When viewing this middle terrain, we can start to conceive a veiled occultism. Footnote 5, quote, when the world in itself becomes occulted or hidden, a strange and paradoxical movement takes place whereby the world in itself presents itself to us, but without ever becoming fully accessible or completely knowable, end quote, by Eugene Thacker from In the Dust of This Planet, 2011. However, the opacity of these layers and their subsequent depth of obscurity are not complete. If they were, there would be nothing to see. Frustratingly, Moire is captivating in its complexity, in its dance that threatens reason, and in its existence outside of the presently predictable. Footnote 6, quote, we might pin down a buckyball's location by observing it, but in between our observations, it takes all paths. No matter how thorough our observation of the present, the unobserved past, like the future, is indefinite and exists only as a spectrum of possibilities. By Stephen Hawking and Leonard Mlodinov from The Grand Design, 2010. The abstract space of dull, blurry shade and sharp points of light oscillating within the effect wait for the curious. With eyes captivated, awareness seeks out qualities of relation that offer form to the space-time between the layered depths of grounds and figures. The following is an approximate 25-minute composition conceived as a Moire project in conversation with the Canlum issue. What you will see is silent video that wanders around 5 sites of Canlum's work, each of which is accompanied by a corresponding audio track that was made over the last few days by people in the cities at the sites. Further context and details will be provided afterwards. You may want to raise or lower your sound level, but note that there is a mix of louder and more subtle sounds at various points. The video movements may not be very smooth. Apologies for that. And if you feel uncomfortable at any point, I encourage you to close your eyes and consider the audio aspect more closely.
Yeah, again, I think the First Amendment right trumps some of the other responses, and we are just asking them. We don't want to go out and arrest everyone and cause more disruption, but we are asking them to wear unintentional distance as much as possible. And for the most part, I'm seeing that, and I'm grateful as I watch some of the protests and some of the media photographs and so forth of some of these protests, that they are wearing masks. And I think that that's a testament to them understanding the gravity of the situation, but also wanting to exercise their First Amendment rights and to take, again, for this to happen at the same time, inconvenient at best, but again, I think this is too important an issue to let go.
several years, I worked for a community arts organization and was responsible for steering public art projects. A couple of murals come to mind. And maintenance is always a thing that, when you consider the investment in public art, you don't necessarily consider the long tail investment. A few years back, I remember revisiting a mural that I was a part of near Yorkdale. It was a mural that was working with youth in Lawrence Heights, Neptune, and it was in such disarray. Another mural that I wasn't directly part of, but the artist I worked with was, and it was the same organization. You know, it's different. And so it's telling, I suppose, or not, that in looking at a work like this by an artist like Ken Lum, I mean, what does the maintenance look like right now, or lack thereof? There's some garbage in the, I guess, expanse between the two figures. There's weeds, tall grass in between, I guess, maybe some flowers are going to bloom later this season. It's an area that I'm sure residents, shoppers from the Canadian Tire pass by, and maybe they don't really look at these details. These are kind of the details that, when you are thinking of the life cycle of a work, you think about the care and consideration of it. Talking about care and consideration for public art objects. What does care and consideration look like for human beings, interspecies, in your world building? What does it look like?
And we need to stand up. We need to stand up. All of us need to stand up.
Grabbing a constitution myself.
Last thing, I'd like to sing a happy birthday and
I don't know if you can hear the protest. I don't know if you can call it protest. It's a gathering right now. But this woman is asking us to sing happy birthday to Donald Trump.
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to President Trump. Happy birthday to you. Keep up the good work, President. We love you.
It's that unfortunate thing of I can't make that shit up. Yesterday there were two protests here actually, one in support of the family of Chantal Moire, an Indigenous woman who was shot out in New Brunswick by the police during a wellness check. It actually accidentally crossed over with the protests in support of Hong Kong. The protesters for Hong Kong actually closed up and gave room for the family yesterday, so not every day here is ugly. So I came here to talk about the Ken Lum pieces, and honestly, I hadn't really noticed them until a couple weeks ago when I came up for the Black Lives Matter rally, and I was like, oh, those are new. They've actually been there since 2001. They're interesting. Oh, that's too wild. I just walked by my landlord. But yeah, so the boats, I noticed they're painted black, red, white, and yellow. And I always kind of feel my whole body clench when I see that, because I'm never sure if it's an Indigenous artist doing it. And then I also have like mixed feelings, because like how much of that feeling do I really get to own as a nation who, to my knowledge, doesn't really use the medicine wheel. So I have questions. I looked it up. There's like a very sparse collection of information about it online, even on Ken Lum's site. I'm not mad about the work. I mean, if it was intentional to use medicine wheel colors, that's one thing. Arguing whether or not this is an area that needs healing is another. People bring a lot of fear, anger, grief here, and ugliness. So I can't discount the value of putting that there. Oh man, this whole thing is just like blocked off. I don't know how to get to the front of the gallery. That was really upsetting, walking by that other group. Yesterday I was out at Namgans, the tent city encampment down in Crab Park, which is an Indigenous-led encampment for homeless people. And I think the question I have about this work in general, and most work in general, is just what would it look like if there were Indigenous people who hadn't been colonized who could enact their own governance? And I wonder what the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples would have done if they were in full control of their territories and were receiving these migrant ships or receiving the Komagata Maru. My hope is always that you find a way to make space and accept people and receive them as they come. But I think in contrast to singing happy birthday to Mr. Trump over there, you can understand how that feeling gets complicated, and maybe an Indigenous group of people wouldn't welcome people who arrived. I hope if they saw that they were in need that they would.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that with me. While I offer context and details on the project we just experienced, I will show images from the Moire issue that corresponded to the relevant sites of work by Ken Lum. In order of presentation, we have the first audio by Mei Chu in Montreal at the site of the No Longer There, There Is No Place Like Home, 2001. 1543 Rue Jean Mance at the intersection of Rue Belmore and Mayor Street. The wrong button there. Following that, we had audio by Ria McNamara in Toronto at the site of Across Time and Space, Two Children of Toronto Meet in 2013. Intersection Unnamed Laneway at 542 Bay Street. We then had audio by Tiziana Lamilia in Vancouver at the site of What an Idiot You Are. What an utterly useless idiot you are. And next to that, the work, You So Smart, You Make Me Proud, You're So Smart, I So Proud, You So Smart, from 2006 at the intersection of Thornton Street and Malkin Avenue. We then had audio work by Wes Harmon at the site of Four Boats Stranded, Red and Yellow, Black and White, from 2000 at 750 Hornby Street, the four corners of the Vancouver Art Gallery. We then had audio work by Patrick Cruz at the also longer there, Vancouver especially, a Vancouver special scaled to its property value in 1973 and increased by 8-fold, which is located at 71 Union Street, approximately the intersection of Union Street and Gore Avenue. I'm very grateful and appreciative of the time that May, Ria, Tiziana, Wes, and Patrick offered to engage this project. For me, the sites and engagement are important in the real world as much as a virtual world, in addition to the historical and contemporary contexts. I wanted to facilitate the consideration for a diversity of voices, which I greatly appreciate as a key aspect in the work of Ken Lum. The speaking fee offered to me for this event was redistributed towards the people that did the audio visiting work. This project as recording will be available at a later date and will offer full textual references and credits. Before my voice fades, I would like to revisit Ken Lum's 2006 essay, Something's Missing. This text continues to stick with me for personal and professional reasons. I would like to share a passage that I believe offers even further insight when spoken in the light of our current conditions. To quote, "We like to believe that art operates in a space separate from political economy. We even like to believe that this separation is necessary in order to maintain a critical distance from the social order. There is some validity to the separation, and that critical distance from one's own presuppositions can allow for different epistemic perspectives. But I'm also wary of the ways in which the separation can be used in the service of a neo-colonialist logic." That text is included in Ken's recent book, Everything is Relevant. Thank you very much for your time and attending. Okay, Jan.
Okay, so we can come back, and I'm going to invite Nick back, and also our project coordinator, Lucia. I just have to find, where are you?
Excuse me.
And now it's Q&A. If anybody you have questions, and I think you can either type in chat, but it would be great if you actually type in the Q&A box if you see it at the bottom of your screen. And thanks, Colin. This is wonderful, and I really enjoy the tour, the visual and the audio. It's amazing.
Yeah, I should thank all the people involved, especially there's a lot going on these days, especially Wes was involved in some political actions during this time, and I think is currently doing that. So it's yeah, really amazing that these people shared their time with us.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, I guess actually I'm really curious to hear is Ken, are you still here? I really would like to hear what you think about it and how you think about the tour. Is it okay? I allow you to talk, and you can tell us. Okay. I wonder. Okay, cool. Okay, I think I just allow you to talk.
Okay.
Great. Yes.
First, is that part of the design, the Moire pattern over Colin? Because I can barely see him.
Yeah, it's part of that, part of the design.
Okay, I think it's over designed.
Yeah.
I prefer to see
lots of opinions out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the experience of it, obviously in the Zoom format, isn't maybe ideal, but I certainly think, you know, alone late at night, you have your headsets on, maybe with a tablet, and you have the sound reverberating in your ears, right? Then things start ricocheting as a kind of constellation of I don't know, of just a melange of moments and thoughts, right? I think I like the structure of it, because I think the structure encapsulates to a very fidel degree the way we experience, or the way we try to come to terms with experience as it tries to take the form of memory, right? Or as it takes the form of insight or something, right? And it's often a bit clashing and unclear and inchoate even, right? And but yet that's the environment. That's the environment that's constituted by all, and why the social environment so agonistic in character, right? So I liked it. That's all I can say. I appreciate it. I do think, you know, I kept imagining if I was just lying in bed at night on my own, or in my office in front of the desktop, right? And it became very erratic and or something, then it would be really quite something, you know. It'd be almost druggy, but I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, I agree. It's I think maybe we should edit that part of the video and the recording as an individual and independent piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the idea, is to have that video and audio in a clear format available through the Moire website. Yeah, like a high-res kind of thing, so people could listen and revisit to it. I also really want to make the full credits of all the people who were involved in the production. So I think that's an appropriate format to do that as well.
I especially like the person who was commenting on the 4-boat stranded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Wes Harmon. Yeah,
right, Wes Harmon. It was very. Yeah. I wouldn't say it was contesting, but it was. You know, it wasn't. It unveils the work even further, right? In terms of maybe its limits, even, and also in terms of its. You know, it reveals different. You know, the challenges that comes with opening up perspectives. Right, different readings, especially a reading that's not as that's marginalized, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I tried to think through. I mean, just different people and based on the timelines and stuff to kind of access a diversity of people that might have various things to offer.
Yeah, and I just one final thing. I don't want to hog it, but I always saw it became a collective. It became a kind of inventory of public work that, for Vancouver, right? It wasn't something that was planned in advance. I won this competition, and then someone else asked me to do a project there, and then I won another one, and then someone else asked me to do another project there, and so over many years, the result was a kind of landscape in the lower mainland of British Columbia that was dotted with several works of mine, right? But it wasn't something that I had planned in advance. But now that it is there, I really do see it as a kind of theory of the lower mainland, of the history of it, of the province of it, of the marginalized voice, of the challenges that of the histories ignored, of the challenges that confront the city today, and by extension of Canada. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, really appreciate your attendance, Ken, and your generosity of working with me and with Moire on this project. Over 20 years, I guess.
Well, Colin was a student of mine when I was at UBC, so, and I see Wanda Weckler, and I think maybe
I think
Bromowski's here. They're students too.
We have some questions going. I think we were talking about the Vancouver piece, and I'm just wondering, because it's from anonymous attendee, and asking, would Colin give us more details on the issues surrounding the downtown Vancouver work with the boats? And I just wonder if this person can let us know if the conversation just happened between Colin and Ken, answer their question, or you would like to have more information.
Yeah, I think Ken did a good job of addressing some of that, and I certainly want to speak for Wes as well. So that's, yeah, I feel like that's kind of been addressed to some extent in the capacity of this Q&A.
And I think then the next question is from Michelle Gay. If I pronounce anybody's name wrong, please forgive me, and I just apologize in advance. So she's saying it's not so much a question, but I'm really intrigued by Colin's journey from personal bio to the metaphor of what a Moire is, keeping this texture as we travel with Colin slowly through Ken's work. Quite mesmerizing. I like the timing a lot. And the next one, I think it's a question from Ron Wild.
Maybe if I could just jump in. Yeah, for me, a practice is ongoing. So for me, that's part of the power of a practice. And same with methodologies, is they allow for adaptations, different perspectives and growths of individuals and communities, contexts. So I think practices are quite powerful things to consider along with works and things like this. So there's definitely aspects of time and space, and so thank you for the comment.
Okay, and Nick, do you want to read the next question?
Sure. So going back, Ron Wild is asking, going back to the piece at the Vancouver Art Gallery, if Ken can comment on the use of the Indigenous color palette with the boats.
Am I still muted?
You are talking, you're not muted.
Oh, okay. Good thing I wasn't laughing away. Well, the color palettes actually come from the Christian children's song, God loves all the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white. We're all God's children in his sight. So it's actually a quotation from that song, right? It's because I'm not Christian, but I wanted the work to, first of all, the Vancouver Art Gallery gave me a very modest directive. This is in advent of the 2000 arriving. And the directive was to make a work about the millennium and for the region of Vancouver, which is a pretty big, big subject to deal with. And so I thought, well, what would be signifiers? They would be epochal. And so I thought boats arriving could represent kind of epochal changes. I wasn't trying to say that each epochal change was a progress or a step up from the previous one. I was just saying it was the marker. So you could say when contact arrived, that was as emblematized by Captain Vancouver's boat, that was a marker. The Komagata Maru, where, you know, Canada was no longer just it never was, but it was no longer, let's just say the British population that was ruling Canada was suddenly being challenged in terms of its rule. And so that was marked by the Komagata Maru. And then the last one was a Fujian refugee boat of would-be illegal immigrants from Fujian province in China that made the news, right? They were kind of unceremoniously dumped on the rocks off Haida Gwaii. And so, what's the one thing that tethers the whole thing in terms of history, right? Of this whole millennium, you might say, it is basically sorry, I'm just losing my thought. The Christian ethos, right? So, you know, I'm not Christian, right? I have a lot of problems with it. So, but it's about that Vancouver was the social economy, the philosophical economy was always guided by the Christian ethos, right? It's similar to the monument for East Vancouver, the East Van Cross. It's the Christian ethos. So when people say, well, try to defend me by saying it's not really a Christian cross, I always say it is a Christian cross, right? But then they say, that surprises me. I didn't know you were a Christian. I said, it's not about me being a Christian. It's about the Christian ethos being the predominant and, you know, even oppressive terms by which we experience social life. And so the four colors come from that song, which was a song that's very commonly sung by Canadian school children. I had to learn it when I was a kid, when I was very young. It's very popular. It has a bit of a troubling beginning because it started as a American Civil War song, but the tune became readapted and the lyrics became was rewritten as a children's Christian song.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have one more question from Michelle Gay. This time it's a question, so I guess it's for Colin. Do you think of the concept of Moire as 4 dimensions, bracket, space and time, bracket? Then we use this as a lens to consider the rich works of Can, for instance.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think there's an aspect of space and time involved. Part of what intrigued me about these concepts of Moire and even this notion of the catwalk is that in order to see things differently or gain new perspectives, we need to shift our positions. So I think I got into some of that in terms of the theory with the reading I did from a kind of graphic unconscious. And this idea of changing perspective also requires us to shift, to see things at a different angle. And by shifting our perspective, we see various complexities of places and histories, etc. And things that may be hidden behind it or around it or on the other side of it start to reveal themselves. And that offers more information from which we can, start asking questions and complexifying how we know things or see things and understand things.
Okay, great. Well, we have time for one more question if anyone has one. Otherwise, I think, Lucia, do you want to post all those links? And I think in the chat box, and we are going to post the links and for our future events and in the context of online, and the links for you to register for the webinar series we have for next week. And also how to register for the competition, and also where to download Moire. And actually, in conclusion, first of all, thank everyone. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, the artist and who helped produce this project and make it happen. And thanks so much, Ken, for being here, not only being to support us and also participate at Q&A. And in closing, actually, I would like to read one quote from the interview Ella had with Ken in Moire on the subject of imagination. I think it resonates with today's event and the spirit of our online initiative. So to quote, "What role does the imagination play in terms of knowledge production? Without the capacity to imagine, there would be no human development. All experience is rooted in the imagination in the sense that we draw lessons from what we experienced in terms of what we felt and sensed, and what we imagine to be otherwise of what was experienced. The imagination is in everything we are as humans." So thanks again and for joining us. And well, hope to see you again in our future events.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciated.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.